Hello and welcome everybody. It is Friday, it is 6 o'clock and it's 6 o'clock Club. Hi, I'm Andy from Twisted Narrative and I'm joined tonight by an even more familiar face, a face that is getting familiar day by day. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Ian. You probably know me by now.
Mm, absolutely. Thank you for joining us. Hi Kyle, thanks for jumping into chat already. We've got sort of a busy one tonight. Tonight we're going to be doing a review of the week. We're going to be talking about this weekend's games, and part of the review of the week we'll obviously talk about the game that Ian played in midweek, which is our Call of Cthulhu Tales from the Smoke actual play. And then I've got sort of a coming up thing as well to sort of chat about some of the actual plays coming up and everything else really. So once again, a busy one. But
I
as
think
always, before we even delve into those things, um, quick chat about last night's game and a quick chat about tonight's game, really. Although that will come into what's happening this weekend, I guess. So last night we had a full group for Call of the Netherdeep, actually running the published game book. Um, and it was an interesting one last night. We had six players. We had we had uh, Jack, and sorry, I'm confusing
all the
myself by doing
J's.
this. Yeah, we've got James, Joe, Jack, Michael, Connor, and that was in the game. I knew I'd actually made notes of it. And that they started off because there was only three players the previous session, and they were in a little bit of a sort of combat, and it wasn't going particularly well for them because they were at half strength. But they soon dealt with that, and then there was some explorations and uncovering and working things out, which was quite nice. But then there was something that was kind of problematic. I certainly felt, and it wasn't until I was running it that it felt. I don't know whether I was running it badly, but it was a consecutive number of different saving throws as they made their way down. Um, and it basically was saying these things trigger as soon as they, in effect, cross the threshold. So it wasn't a case of everybody being a group and then everybody having to make the saving throw. It was like one person, as often does stealth forward, they had to make the saving throw. They failed the saving throw. Something happened. Then at the end of their turn, they got to make a saving throw. They passed it. Everybody knew. And it was very much a kind of in and out. Am I going to pass it? As soon as they passed it, they were immune to the effect for a certain amount of time. Um, but it felt not because the players were doing the right thing, because of the way that it was written. It felt very awkward.
Stop.
Um, Sorry.
Stop. Start.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And uh, it just again, I think I would have rewrote it. But the way that it was written, it was like when they cross the threshold, this happens. But immediately after that, they encounter something else, which does the same thing again, but for a different reason. Um, and I certainly would have tried to break that up as well. It's quite nice to have the three pillars of sort of role playing, sort of combat, social, and exploration kind of split up. So you sometimes have a number of social encounters or a number of combat encounters after each other, but it's nice to mix it up. And they succeeded. They got down and they are now going to explore this lower chamber. Um, I think I could certainly have run it better, but the only way I could have run it better is changing it somewhat, so that it only triggers when something else happens, for instance, and hits the whole party. Everybody makes a save. Some people save, some people don't. Things happen. It's a moment of peril and quite interesting dynamics. Um, So I think the players were joyous to get through it and joyous to succeed. I don't think it was, a terrible session, but I just kind of felt I could do better.
I think
I'd
that
be
hap-
sorry.
I think that happens sometimes, right? When you've got this is a pre-written campaign,
Yeah, yeah,
right? So when you read that pre-written campaign on paper, you can look at it and go, "Well, that seems okay. Yeah, that
mm,
seems like I don't see an issue with that." And then you dive into it, and the mechanics of it are, you know, they do hold it back. But it's
yeah,
not until you get the opportunity to
yeah,
play it that that's ever going to surface.
yeah, yeah.
So
And as I always said, it doesn't matter how experienced you are, you're always learning, and that's the best way to sort of approach these things is to go, right, I'm going to be a bit more wary. Not about that. The Call of the Nebula is a joy to run. Don't get me wrong. It's been absolutely wonderful so far. Um, and it might have just played out differently when they were play testing it and everything else, or it just got lost in translation, or maybe I misread it. I don't think I did misread it. Um, and as I say, I like to try and give the experience of the book
mhm.
rather than because I might as well just homebrew something if if I'm changing things so much that it doesn't represent what's written. But it was an interesting one. If you are in chat and you played last night, as I know some of you are, hiya Elsa, let us know in the comments. I would very much. I like to dissect these things without doubt. Um, so that was the game. As I say, it wasn't terrible, um, but I felt it could have been more dramatic, if you know what I mean. Um, uh, so that was last night's game. Tonight's game we will do when we start talking about the weekend, I suppose, um, which we'll do now anyway. I'm just trying to figure on what the best thing to do is. I think talking about this weekend's games and then going on to the review of the week leads us into the Call of Cthulhu thing, which is probably going to take a little bit more of the time.
Yeah, of course.
So tonight is Collateral Damage, our weekly fifth ed game. I've spoken obviously on a weekly basis about it. Super fun. They've returned to Faerun now. We have Ryan, Ben, Charlotte, Michael, Stuart, and Richard in it. V, unfortunately, is not around tonight. I say they returned to Faerun. It's 5th edition, and they are 18th level. They're just about to speak with Force Grey and Waterdeep and try and uncover a conspiracy. Whether they act upon it or not, we will find out tonight. Um,
Is your Force Grey traditional Force Grey, or have you altered it slightly?
I've altered it slightly. I felt um, I felt it was a little too light-hearted. The stuff that's gone before. I like my humour,
Hmm.
but I want it Force Gate. It's supposed to be like a special Black Ops group,
Yeah.
and I wanted to give it a little bit more of an edge, to be honest. Um,
my my PCs in a game I'm running. I'm not going to say which it is because it would
yeah,
give away where they were.
yeah,
Um, are encountering a particular member
yeah,
of as written Force Grey
yeah,
at the moment. I think it works for the campaign that it's in.
yeah, yeah.
But
There's nothing wrong with it. But this, I say, this is homebrew. So, to be perfectly honest, I played the Harpers completely differently to the way that they should be. Um,
not a fan of the Harpers. I'll put my hands up. I think I preferred them in 2E. I think
yeah,
they've
yeah,
changed them
yeah,
pretty
yeah.
much
No,
now.
absolutely. Mine are much more 2E orientated, and
Hmm.
it's whatever works at your table, really. The Zentarum are pretty much the same. Um, the Xanathar pretty much the same. Um, but certainly Force Grey and the Harpers, I've kind of taken some second edition influences from. Um, but obviously, I grew up throughout that period of Ed
Hmm.
Greenwood and all of the second edition Forgotten Realms stuff coming out, and I absorbed it. And it wasn't just books; it was novels, it was computer games, it was a whole host of media, and it was fantastic. And I think
It
that
was.
stays with you. I think it does stay with you.
It does. I think earlier in the week you mentioned when you had the shop, you
Yeah,
used to run Under Mountain as a drop-in. Sorry, you used to
yeah,
run
yeah,
that what would be what was known as Under
yeah,
Mountain, but is now known as Dungeon of the Mad Mage.
yeah, yeah,
And I remember, I think that was the second kind of box set that I bought
yeah.
to run for the table that I used to like rotate games around with. And yeah, I don't know how he ran it. I mean,
Yeah,
you were talking about maps on
yeah, yeah.
VTTs yesterday with Ethan, right? And God, there was some big maps in that game.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, they used to like their poster maps, and
Hmm.
what they used to do. I mean, you know this, but I'm letting the audience know. It wasn't like he's a poster map. It's like no, he's several poster maps that actually connect together. Welcome. I mean, it was amazing and it was good, and I don't know how we used to run games back then, but we did, and we had great times. I like the way that things are now, and I think virtual tabletops are a godsend, especially for doing like the game that I'm about to mention now, which is tomorrow's games, Saturday, and Dungeon of the Mad Mage is the first one that we're running, and Ian is in it. So we've got Anand, we've got Richard, we've got Pete, we've got Ian, we've got Josh. Jocelyn should be in it, but unfortunately she can't make it. Tell us about it.
Love it. I think people have a perception of what that campaign is about before they come into it, and I think my experience of playing it at your table, and that's all you can ever talk about is the
Hmm.
table you play it at, it is a dungeon crawl. You're never going to get away from that, right? There is pre-designed areas that there's great traps, there's great riddles and all that kind of stuff. But what really sets it apart is there is a huge amount of role-playing opportunity in there and a huge amount of politics. And I think we've probably engaged more with the politics than we have with the traditional dungeon crawl
Hmm.
aspect of things, which I've really enjoyed. I think we've got. We've lost some really great players from that game, and we've replaced them with some really great players.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, when I joined, Michael and Ryan were in there as well, and we just said it was great.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
was really, really great. So yeah, a really
Uh,
good game.
and there was a lot of role playing. I mean, I'm a great believer you can get role playing anywhere in any kind of game if you want it. Um, Even if it's just the players role playing with each other. Even if it's like you it's a dungeon a bash hack or whatever you want to call it against some goblins or orcs or whatever. They are obviously the bad guys, and you have to cut your way through it. You can still role play amongst each other, and there's a lot of that. I love all your characters. Obviously, there's some quite nice, interesting things we're doing, sort of homebrewish for your character.
Yeah,
But I mean, Jocelyn, once again, star. The way she's playing Feral, it's creepy and weird, and um, I
I've
never know what's going to happen next, to be perfectly honest.
I've got to be honest. Everyone in that game always pings me out of left field. So I've loved playing with Pete's character from the very beginning. I think
Yeah,
he plays his Tabaxi incredibly well, right? Um, and but I think Anand's swashbuckler
yeah, barbarian.
barbarian
Yeah,
who gets through so many
yeah.
shirts is just little details, and yeah, I
It's
love that
great.
game.
No, no, very,
Yeah,
very much. Yeah. I mean, he basically is playing a swashbuckling barbarian, so barbarian rogue, and he's now got this thing. I don't know whether he conceived it right at the beginning, or it was just a nice little touch he came up with that we've played upon now. That every time he sort of rages, he kind of just rips his shirt. But he's got basically, I said, I don't care. You've just got unlimited amounts of shirts, so he kind of just gets a new one out, and it's just funny. I find it funny. Obviously, you do as well.
yeah. One thing I would say before we kind of move
Yeah.
on about that, and that is, I think Dungeon of the Mad Mage does something that other campaigns find non-homebrew
Hmm.
other campaigns will find difficult, and that is, as a group of players, we can decide in the session whether we want to do a dungeon bash or whether we want to go down the role play route. And I think having that flexibility is incredibly empowering to a group of players, and it must be terrifying to a DM at times, not knowing what way that could go
Yeah.
in that session. Yeah,
Absolutely. I mean, I think we've mentioned this a number of times. I'm just looking at chat now, and hello, not very Geordie, who says Dungeon and Magic Maze is a wild ride. Um, um, it's kind of a very strange thing because you would think it's a natural progression from Dragon Heist to then link it to Dungeon and Magic Mage, and it's not really. And also, it's not difficult to run, um, but it's very complex, and there's a lot of moving parts. And like we were chatting earlier, you kind of can't go, well, they're only on level one, so I'm just going to read level one, because there are factions that are dotted about the entirety of the dungeon, and it's, I don't know, 22, 24 levels or something crazy, maybe even more, because there's like pocket dimensions. I'm not giving any spoilers away. It's just it, some of it doesn't make. There's kind of hidden levels as well. Like level 6 was kind of the lost level, and um, so you kind of need to read it all, and then each level has got 30 to 50 rooms, if not more. Um, so there's so much in that book. It's well worth the money if you like that kind of experience, and you can sort of get role playing countery type things out of it because there's a lot of factional politics. Um, but yeah, I don't think it's the simplest of campaign books to buy and sort of run really, but thoroughly enjoying it. There's not a point where I kind of think, oh no, this has become grindy now. It doesn't feel that way at all. And yeah, a great set of players. Thank you very much as well for jumping in there. Not very Geordie. I love that. I know who you are, but I'm not going to say. Okay. Um, yeah, so Saturday's normally a busy day, but unfortunately we've had a few people that can't make the next two games, which has dropped the numbers down, and we've had to postpone them. So it would have been Greyhawk Unbound with Al Simon, John and Wayne, and it would have been Tales from the Smoke with Kyle, Cara, Marcus and Ben. Um, but unfortunately, those aren't going to fire now, and I've rescheduled other work for me to do. It was too late to reschedule any other sort of games, but I'm going to have to spend my time doing something. Well, I've got so much work on doing something else anyway. So that just then leads us to Saturday night, which is Spelljammer Cosmic Rain, and we've got Jack, Sky, and Adam. They've just, as I said, it was a very big plot. They've just managed to escape. They've just managed to reclaim a Spelljammer. They've landed on this planet of sentient sort of flora. That's the right word. Flowers, sentient plants, and they are going to explore it. And I think they might take a little sojourn to the Feywilds as well. So I'm
Nice.
quite looking forward to Spelljammer Feywild.
Feyjammer.
Feyjammer, yeah, which is, I mean, I'm going to note that down. I
You
mean,
can you can have that one for free.
thank you.
Anything on this show is your property, so I understand. Just so you're aware, in chat at the moment,
Yeah.
Carl has said that he spoke with Cara and she can play in the smoke. So I don't know if that changes things for you at all, but
No, unfortunately not. It's a little too late now.
that ship has sailed.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I've had to make other arrangements, so um, it will have to be 2 weeks. Apologies for that. Um, but I kind of need a degree of sort of notice to kind of rearrange things, unfortunately. Um, I did try to reach out to her. I know that Puakara, she's an angel. She works crazy shifts and is all over the place, but I shall miss that game. Um, So that is Saturday, and then Sunday is also quite quiet because we've got a few of our players out of the country at the moment. So there is only one epic game that is going on Sunday, and it's a game that Ian is in, a game which is mythical, Rise of the Weird Eaters. We've got Casper, Natasha, and Ian, Marcus, and Jack in that. And again, feel free to have a quick
Yeah, I
chat.
will be. I'll be really quick. I think what's really interesting about that campaign is we've gone from what was a series of connected one shots
Hmm.
to kind of, in that tier one system, and then you had a few games that didn't fire, and you opened it up, and I think I said, can we move this to a campaign? We had enough players, and we're forging now as a party, which is really good to see. But it's
Yeah.
an unusual party because we have a spread of levels. I'm not sure how many other games you run have that kind of spread.
Hmm.
And it will,
It's only mythical that
yeah,
I do sort of proper experience.
yeah. And I think that will gradually get to a point where that gap is smaller because as you get to larger levels, it takes longer to get there.
Hmm.
But at the moment, I think Jack's like level 5, maybe going into level 6. I'm like level 7, Anand's level 7, Marcus is level 6,
Yeah.
and I think we've got some level 8s and level 9s in
Yeah.
there. Um, and that must be challenging from a balance perspective at times. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know that part of it, part of mythical is a power trip, right? But that
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
a
No, no, not
um,
not at all. Because I mean, your character is much stronger than the level that you're at because you've
yeah.
optimized it. Also, mythicals about having these. Everybody's got magical talents, so you've got some cantrips and a first level spell, and magic items are one tier down, which I knew what I was doing when I was doing it, but it completely shifts the nature of the game.
It does.
Um, um, I mean, for instance, the Icebreakers game, which is going to be next Thursday night, I'll come on to that in a minute because it's the third anniversary of it. I've been overly generous. I deliberately was overly generous with magic items, and whilst they're 12th level, it feels much, much stronger. And the thing with magic items on the whole is they are more powerful than levels. A level gives you maybe one or two extra spell slots, but once you cast your spell, it's gone. Gives you, a D6 to D12 hit points. But I mean, that's nothing at higher levels. But when you've got like a flaming longsword that is doing extra 2d6 damage on top of everything else, it makes a big difference. And of course, if you've got magical armor, if your armor classes, because armor is one of those things. And I kind of like what they've done in 5th edition. They've deliberately made it easier to hit monsters so that it feels like the players are actually achieving something.
Yeah.
I think in possibly certainly 3.5 and Pathfinder at higher levels, it could get to the you either miss or you hit and it kills you sort of thing. Really,
Mhm.
it was very kind of sort of swingy. Um, but of course, what they haven't addressed is that players can max their armor and then throw things like shield and everything else upon it, which takes their armor class up to math that the system can't deal with. When you're achieving sort of armor class 27 to 29, a monster's maybe a lot of the average monsters don't really have any greater than maybe a +9 +10.
Mhm.
That means that on the whole they need an 18, 19 or 20 to hit,
Yep.
um, which I think is about a 15% chance of success. um, and it's one of the imbalances that has happened through fifth ed, as more and more supplements have come out. um, it's not an imbalance to me because I just give the monsters a greater chance to hit. I just increase their stats and everything else to readdress it, but not in a mean way of, well, they're always going to hit. It's just if this monster should have a 50% chance of hitting, I need to up its pluses to achieve that. And it's quite fair. It's fairly easy on a D20 system because each each one is a 5% basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So the math is not that challenging to know how many extras you want to put on. So I think you're perfectly right. If it was like a standard game and we had a 5th level character, a 9th level character, it would be felt. But
Hmm.
because of the fact it's mythical, and I encourage that, and I encouraged optimal building, it feels less like imbalanced. Even Jack said in Discord that
Yeah.
even it is quite tough for a 5th level character as a barbarian.
I
Um,
agree. I think I don't normally optimize. In fact, I don't optimize on in general because um, it doesn't kind of sit there. Herschel's just a different beast. I've kind of found a character I like with him,
mhm.
and the optimization of him kind of makes sense with that character.
Yeah,
Um,
there's,
and
there's there's nothing wrong with
I have
it.
a really great, yeah. I mean, I have a great. It's just a fun time playing him, and
Yeah,
um, he's quite shallow, so that helps as well.
yeah, yeah. There's literally nothing wrong with optimizing. I've said it over and over again. If if players optimize the characters, it's down to the GM to deal with that. If the players are cheating, that's a different discussion to be had. But if it's with rules as written, good on you. Uh, I suppose the only thing that is cheeky, I'm not saying that you've done it, um, and it happens. It happened when I was running the store and people playing Magic the Gathering. It happens in card games. It's called net decking, but you can go to YouTube now and go, okay, I want to play the best, sorcerer.
Mistake. Yeah, yeah.
I'll YouTube. What is the best sorcerer? Okay, and there's some really cool videos of people that have analysed the best way to min max, and I don't find that wrong to do or frustrating. I find it somewhat confusing because people are choosing the optimal sort of ancestry and class and equipment rather than letting it evolve naturally. It's like, well, I kind of really wanted to play a halfling, but I'm going to play a tiefling because it matches this class build more. And it's kind of you building a character to be optimal in the game rather than a character that you're going to enjoy playing. It's almost like you're playing a playing piece rather than a role play character. And I don't mind it. I find it confusing. You can still have fun playing that kind of character. Don't get me wrong. Um, but and I do it all the time in a computer game.
Mhm.
You kind of do that, but it's a computer game, so you're not role playing. You're kind of using the avatar that you've got to force your way through that game. But a role play table where you've got the luxury of a GM that can modify things for you, that you don't have to be optimal, that you can play the way that you see that character cinematically, I think is perhaps missing something. Um, maybe
I think it's a really good point, and I'll be honest with you. Herschel is that person, right? I'll be straight up. I was like, that bugbear class in, you know, that's awfully powerful. That extra damage you're getting on a
mhm,
surprise round or on a first round, and Gloomstalker's doing this, and I looked into it and I was like, oh, this build is like that's pretty amazing.
yeah,
Um, but then off the back of that, that made me go, wow, I've got a really cool idea for a character. I could see him being, how's he going to grow, right?
yeah,
Because all of these builds are all about when you hit X,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right? It's not about what you do on that journey,
yeah, yeah.
right? And I think maybe that's the bit that you don't see, Andy, is that to get Herschel to where he is now, I
Mhm.
had to go through level one to level thinking I wasn't a Gloomstalker at level one.
Yeah, yeah.
So I still had to create the character and understand how he was going to progress through.
Oh
And
yeah, as I say,
yeah,
I don't have any issue with it.
no, no,
I suppose if I guess people do, they might think, oh, actually, I do want to play a tiefling sorcerer. What's the best tiefling sorcerer build out there? Um, so I mean, I say I do it on computer games,
Mhm.
um, and I say I don't have genuinely a problem with it. It is I see it as my purpose and my job to use the rules that you've used to create that to entertain you, basically. Um, and I like Herschel. I think it's a very good build. But I will warn all of my players out there that I know about the YouTube videos and
Yeah,
I watch them too. And
yeah, of
I
course.
know what their weaknesses is. And I know that quite often they go, well, it should work like this, but you really should speak to your GM because
TM.
there's a very grey area with how this should work. And
Agreed.
yeah, yeah.
And I think I actually had for that. I think I actually spoke to you about how do you rule on surprise, for
Yeah,
instance, right? Because I think there's a lot of people out there that, and you're not one of them, that see it as a cheat, right?
yeah.
And I think surprise rounds in earlier editions were way more cheap than surprises now. Um,
It's technically rules as written almost impossible to get surprise,
yeah, exactly.
and it's even more almost impossible if you're not by yourself. If you've got another three adventurers with you, and you kind of go, look, I'm an assassin. Please let me go first. Let me take my shot. I'm going to get a critical hit. It's going to be automatic damage. I'm going to do and then the paladin has just charged forward, and you go, okay. And it happens, which is why I kind of try and say, look, you can get this close.
Mhm.
If you go any further, there's a good chance that you won't have surprise. But if you want to act from this position, you can have a surprise round because they're unaware of you. And I think that is just a much more sensible way
I
of
agree.
just ruling it, because if the creatures, if there's no reason for them to be expecting you and you've done all your best you can to sort of get relatively close to them, you should have surprise on them because they're unaware of you, sort of thing, really. And
I agree. We're running the clock down really quickly, but just one last point.
yeah,
I think to exactly your point, and I think about what it's done is it's made like an ongoing, like in joke in that group, which is Herschel constantly going to buy people
yeah,
goggles of
yeah,
the night because they're cheapest chips in that setting, right?
yeah,
And I need to be invisible, and people just don't get it, and they do get it really.
yeah,
I quite like that
yeah, yeah,
as a
absolutely.
kind of a sayer.
It's very good, very good, an enjoyable game. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. There's the end of the combat because there's still,
Yeah.
well, there's some cultists, and there's still two of these scorpion men that are fighting the water elemental.
Hmm.
Um, and then there's moving forward, so I'm very, very much looking forward to it. And it was an epic combat that could have
It was.
easily gone a different way had the monk not did his stunning strike, which was amazing. Um, okay, so I mean that is everything that is going on. Well, not quite everything, because on Sunday night, um, we was going to do an improv, but it's been problematic getting people that have free time to kind of jump in and take part. I was going to do an improv and then a Mork Borg, because Mork Borg is quite improv anyway. You can roll on tables to generate
Mhm.
dungeons and everything else on Sunday nights. Um, but at the moment, until we can kind of build up the amount of cast that we have for actual plays, I don't want to be putting undue pressure on people to take part, and I don't want the stress of having to wrangle everybody together to try and do it, really. So I've done something called Game Over instead, and I'll be live streaming various computer games, starting off with early access of Baldur's Gate.
Nice.
So you'll see me maxing. You'll see me doing the crazy things. I've called that up. So that'll be on Sunday night from 8 o'clock, um, and I will. I'm going to start off with Baldur's Gate. I'm going to do Baldur's Gate Sunday night. If we enjoy it, if people enjoy watching it, I'll continue until we hit. I think the cap is only third level, So I don't know how fast it's going to get us through that. But then there's a ton of other games that I might do Cyberpunk, I might do some more Sons of the Forest, I might do some more Conan. But that is basically what I'm doing until we can build up enough people interested in taking part in some of the actual plays. Um, and that,
Question:
yeah,
are you not running Sean on Sunday?
no, because two of
Ah,
our
okay.
players are um, well abroad, as you very well know,
Okay.
trying to find the
Okay.
Northern Lights.
Teddy and Jen are back. I think they're back tomorrow, hopefully. But
No, I think they're coming back on Sunday, but they might
I
not
hope
be able to
not.
get back.
That might be it. Okay.
Or maybe they're coming back, but they definitely said they couldn't make it.
That makes sense.
Maybe they need a day to recover.
I wouldn't blame them.
I don't know, but um, they're away. They're either going to be away or be back and not able to play.
Fair
Um,
enough.
but fundamentally, and Becca is touring the world as well. So we're down three
Nice.
players. So there is no Eberron on Sunday. So that is what's week in review. What's happening this weekend, um, and then we've firstly with the cast stuff, we've got a few games coming up. We've got a Tales from the Smoke Vampire coming up, and we're looking for people to take part in that. If you are interested, hop into Discord, give me a message. We'll get you into the green room, which is um, the channel that talks about taking part and kind of allocating spaces and everything else. Um, and then there's also the Riddle of Rotwood Bog, um, which is going to be a 50 game. We've got a few spaces left for that, and that is towards the end of the month as well. I can call up the March schedule now for everybody to have a quick look at. So it is on the 22nd, on Wednesday, the 22nd of March, that we've got Tales from the Smoke Vampire the Masquerade at 7 o'clock. And then it is on the 28th of March, the Riddle of Rotwood Bog at 7 o'clock for that as well. We have, though, next week on Tuesday, got a game of Shiver at 7 o'clock. This is a cinematic horror based game. We've got an amazing cast, and the individual who is responsible for creating the game is going to be directing it, as they call it, being the games master, and that is Charlie. So I am super excited for that as well.
I encourage people to go back and listen to that interview that you did with Charlie as well. I thought
Yeah,
the Shiver interview was really good. Really good.
absolutely. Very informed, and I can't wait to sort of take part in it. And then this comes on to quite a short conversation now, I guess, about the game that we ran on Wednesday night, which was the Tales from the Smoke Call of Cthulhu game. I can call this up here. Ian was in it as well. Um, we had a great cast. We had Ian, we had Jocelyn, we had Dave, and we had Chris, all playing in my homebrew world of the smoke. But it was supposed to have a Call of Cthulhu feel to it. I don't know. Did it feel like that? You've played Cthulhu with me before.
I have. So there were times I was during the progress before we got to the inn where we met the grave robber.
Yeah,
I kind of thought, if I was joining this stream, is there enough horror
yeah,
so far? And then it just went crazy.
yeah,
After that, it just went crazy. And I think if I reflect on how Cthulhu is in general, it's pretty much like that normally,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
That it's normal, 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 normal. How things have just gone completely round the bend for us.
yeah,
And yeah, so I still really enjoyed playing in it. A completely different kind of character than I would normally play. I'm very, by nature, I don't like to be that subservient, and he was very subservient to a degree.
yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was. I really enjoyed it. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed it.
It was an interesting one. It did start a lot slower than I anticipated, and I think it was a case of you kind of trusting Cooper Trent first, and that caused sort of conversations. As a one shot, I might have perhaps wrote him in a little closer to you so that
Hmm.
he would have been there as well. And I think that would have cut out half an hour, maybe even longer, of the initial sort of introductions. Um, um,
I
so,
think you'd have had things that would have happened off screen then, though,
yeah,
Andy. Okay, so I thought about that too, and I think part of what works is the tension that's there
yeah,
to begin with, right?
yeah. I mean, certainly, don't get me wrong. I really enjoyed watching you role
Yeah,
play that out. I didn't think it was wrong.
no,
I was thinking more from a viewer perspective as opposed from a player perspective, if you know what I mean.
yeah, but the information that came out of Cooper around the reason I want to speak to you is because of this
Yeah,
was the reason that it drew us together.
yeah, yeah,
And if it had happened, that would have had to have happened off screen to
yeah,
give a narrative reason. And I think that's an important part of the plot
yeah,
that
yeah.
you have.
No, no,
Yeah, so
it's fine.
I get.
Um, I mean, you didn't miss anything out deliberately, but I missed out various encounters because of the time. Again, quite difficult to fit everything into a 3 hour session. Um, had you had more time, um, there was most definitely would have been an opportunity to go to the sort of museums and libraries to kind of, okay, there is something strange going on now. Perhaps we need to see if anything like this has happened before, and that would have gave you a little bit more sort of plot. Um, you, I don't know whether you would have uncovered it because it's library use, but
Mhm,
there were librarians that could have helped you as well. But it would
mhm,
have certainly gave you a little bit more idea of what was going on and
mhm,
perhaps an answer how to deal with it. Um, and that wasn't your fault because of the time constraint for the stream and the game. It was very much a case of, well, you're just going to follow this trail then, and you followed the trail. And I don't know whether we lost a little bit of information there without that trip to the library. It would have been quite interesting. There would have been, had you found the right book, it was obviously in the restricted area, which was the little jibe I kind of mentioned
mhm.
today in Discord. Um, it was like a mythos book, so some sanity would have been lost there, and it was 2d8. It was quite extensive, so that would have caused a little bit more of Cthulhu sanity loss. And that was more or less it, really. Um,
I think Cthulhu as a one shot is a big piece of pie to try and eat
mm, Absolutely.
because in its very nature, it is heavily narrative driven, and you are trying to construct a story from beginning to end in a very short period of time. And
Yeah,
I listen to a lot of Cthulhu podcasts, and they'll say it's a one shot, and you'll be like, it's not a one shot. It's like 9 hours
yeah,
long,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. No, it
So I think with the time you had, I
mhm,
think you did a really good job. I think you have to propel the story forward.
yeah,
So you saying to us, "Can I close the scene there?"
yeah,
Right? You're giving us agency to say, "No, there's more we'd like to do here."
yeah,
But you're also signaling to us, right? You've probably got everything you can out of this right now.
yeah,
What would you like to do? So I felt it gelled well.
yeah, yeah. Again, it was really good. I was really satisfied with the ending
Hmm.
for Cthulhu anyway. I mean, there was the opportunity for that absorption of the mind, whether
Hmm.
that would have strengthened the resolve of Theodore enough to hold back that. But then what do you do with this thing that kind of has the mind of Theodore and his wife, but also has these other things in him?
Hmm.
Um, so that was interesting with I'm going to do it. No, I'm not. And it was like, yeah, when she tried to drag you away, and it was like, no, this isn't fifth edition D&D.
Yeah.
You either stay or you flee. This thing is about to rip you apart.
We,
Um,
me and Jocelyn were chatting the next morning
yeah,
about it. Number one, I'm sure Jocelyn won't mind me saying this. She said it's one of the few things that she's sat her husband down and just went, "Wow, this just happened!" Right.
wow,
So if there's any kind of compliment, there's a great
wow,
compliment.
that's
Yeah.
that's great.
Right. And then I was like, she was like, I felt conflicted. I said that was the whole point, right?
Yeah,
For me, the journey of that story was you have a very loyal servant that has been in servitude to the husband and the wife throughout his career, and the one thing he needs her to do is go, and she does, right?
yeah,
And that was
it was very
a
good.
great story, a great
Yeah,
story.
and I always I don't like killing players, even in Cthulhu, but it has to happen. And
It's amazing in Cthulhu.
I kind of felt sort of mean, but it was necessary. I think if I was directing a horror movie, it is like, well, they died in the fire. There was a fire, it burnt it down, and of course, you killed it, didn't you? But Jeremiah Brass did manage to escape though, and it's just that scene of him sort of walking away, and no indication of is he, isn't he? It's that closing moment of the thing, I guess, where
Yeah.
they just say, um, "I guess we'll have to wait and see."
Hmm.
And I was very pleased it ended that way because I felt it was narratively very, very strong.
I got very Carnage vibes off it as
Oh
well.
yeah, it was that. I based it off an actual Cthulhu, a bit of Cthulhu mythos, um, and there was quite a lot more to sort of come out from that, and I kind of mentioned it in the out sort of thing, really,
Hmm.
that it was trying to get Theodore got, don't like the word possessed, but taken over by it,
Hmm.
and it was only his good-natured mind that was holding it back, and it was trying to compel it to go to the smoke to to um, to thrive in the smoke. This place of, well, of bad morals, but also pollution and everything else. And he literally went, "I can't have this. I'm just going to bury myself again." Um,
That
and
was that was the point for me, for my character.
yeah,
Okay, because when I stepped in front of Dave's character to stop him shooting my old master, I would have stopped that bullet for him
yeah,
because,
yeah,
as far as I was concerned, he was back. My mistress was wanting to engage with him, but as soon as he said that he tried to kill himself,
hmm
well, I was relinquished the duties of him then, right? So,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
who I needed to protect was her again,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
and that was for me, for my character, that's a real turning point for me to be
yeah.
able to kind of step in it. Okay, that I can go this way now.
And I kind of figured that was quite a nice little twist because you were all looking for who murdered him, and it was
Hmm.
him doing it because obviously he'd gone mad because it's
Hmm.
Cthulhu and he'd been taken over by this thing, and he just figured that was the best thing to do and didn't really think that you would be able to uncover him if he brought enough rock down upon him. So yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I feel from my side, I didn't have enough time to do it justice. Um, but I thoroughly enjoyed playing with you all. I loved all of your characters, and um, I thought the narrative of it was very Cthulhu, but I'm not sure how much that came across. Just like you said in the certainly the early part of the game. But as you know, playing in other Cthulhu games, I do like the world building and the
Yeah,
oh, we quite like each other. We've got to know each other. We're this. Oh God, we're all dying. This is horrible.
in fact, for me, Cthulhu's the broken mirror, right?
Yeah,
And so to get to the broken mirror, you've got to have the mirror in the first place.
yeah,
So that's what you do in the first part. That's the reflection of normality that is going on, right? And then
yeah,
suddenly it smashes,
yeah,
and it needs to be sudden because that's jolting, that's horrifying, right? The slow creep works
yeah.
if you've got a long time to do it.
That's
For three
right.
hours, you're never going to do a slow creeping, right?
Yeah. No. How did you feel about the setting? Did you?
Yeah, I think it worked really well. I think I probably over prepared with it.
Yeah,
I'd kind of dived into your primer, and
yeah.
so I'd had some ideas already about when things. I'd already thought when things go wrong, these are probably. I'm already going to kind of try to set things up like I did in the preamble with
Hmm.
saying I've reached out to the guilds and already engaged them, and that they so that I could turn around and say, if such and such, oh, I'd like to reach out to
Yeah,
the the gem cutters or to the flora, but
horologists.
exactly. And I think what I should have done is less prepared, just been aware of it and
Yeah,
just
yeah,
kind of go with that a bit better.
yeah. No, I mean, what I hope to do with Tales from the Smoke is each time we visit it in a different game set, that you become more and more familiar with the setting and you see different aspects of it, even though it's not the same place, because um, I don't want it to be. It's kind of reflections of the same city, if you know what I mean. Um,
I did
so
give you another guild though, so you can have
yeah,
that one as
yeah,
well.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
You have the florist now, right?
I mean, yeah, it only goes so far with the amount of guilds that you need to do. I mean, there's guilds for absolutely everything, so
Everything.
you're absolutely right. Um, but yeah,
It
uh,
it fits it well.
yeah,
That get like I think this current edition of Cthulhu misses Gaslight
yeah,
because I think that's a great setting for Cthulhu. Right?
yeah. I
I
do,
think the
I do.
whole Ripper thing
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
always had kind of
yeah. Sort of like who or what, and yeah,
it's like the time machine, right?
yeah, yeah. Absolutely. Right. Well, we are we haven't overrun because I'm not due to run a game for another 9 minutes. But it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for jumping in so that I'm not just babbling to myself. Um, and yeah, it's been a blast. The week has gone more or less. We've got another week ahead of us. We've got a lot of things going on. I was going to do some announcements for some of the things, but you're going to have to wait till Monday now for those because we are out of time. I say a big thank you to you, Ian, for joining me. Thank you to everybody in chat, everybody that is watching on catch up. If you've got any ideas, the link to the Call of Cthulhu Tales from the Smoke live stream is in the comment section below. If you are interested, have a look. There are there are spoilers there for future Tales from the Smoke as you get to know and see the world develop and explain to you. Um, but I've got a collateral damage to run in a few minutes' time, so I'm going to say goodbye for now. If you have liked it, please give us a subscribe and a like. And I shall see you all again either over the weekend or on Monday at 6 o'clock. Bye bye from me.
Catch you later, everyone.
Take care. Bye bye for now. Have a great weekend.